A band of heroes ventures into the dark forest on a quest to reclaim their homeland. Each carries a mighty regalia, a weapon that grants them strength beyond human limits. Confident in their abilities, they are ready to face the terrifying dark beasts living within the forest. But the moment they arrive, their driver is violently hurled into the abyss by one of the beasts. The rest of the group leaps into action as their leader, Stefan, commands them to form up and charge directly into the heart of the dark beast's lair. One of the heroes, Cats, carves through the monsters with his whirlwind technique, tearing down anything in his way. Meanwhile, Stefan decapitates a massive snake-like creature with his blade, but despite losing its head, the serpent still lunges at him. Just in time, Alicia drives her sword through its eye, delivering the final blow. So far, the team's holding their own, with the weaker monsters now taken care of. They push further into the cave in search of the Beast Lord. Eventually, they reach the cave's core, only to come face to face with Clevites, and the moment they feel its aura, they know this fight will be brutal. The sheer pressure radiating from the beast is overwhelming. Stefan remains confident that with their regalia and teamwork, they can take down anything, even a monster like this. But teamwork won't be enough this time. As they rush in to attack, Clevites swats Stefan into a wall with terrifying force. Panic sets in as the group realizes their strongest warrior has been killed. Still, the tank steps up, convinced he can turn the tide. He leaps into the air to strike, only to be instantly decapitated before his blade even comes down. The rest of the team is finally starting to grasp that a head-on fight isn't going to work, but by then, it's already too late to retreat. Clevites has started eliminating them one by one using his tail. Confusion spreads among the group as they struggle to understand how he's moving so fast. That's when Alicia notices that the attacks are coming from their own shadows. She quickly shouts for everyone to jump, hoping to break the connection and put some space between them and the deadly strikes. Thanks to her quick reflexes, she deflects the beast's blow and stays alive. Unfortunately, the others aren't as fortunate. One of the remaining heroes tries to summon an earth dragon golem by driving his spear into the ground, but it becomes clear the ground is under Clevites' control. As a result, the summoning fails, and several tails erupt from the earth, cutting him to pieces. The lance wielder attempts a full-on charge, hoping to overwhelm Clevites, but while he's desperately fighting for his life, Clevites calmly wonders how such fragile humans even made it into his domain. With little effort, he eliminates the remaining heroes, leaving only Alicia alive. She's been dodging non-stop, using her sword to stay just out of harm's way. After a relentless effort, she finally gets close enough to strike Clevites' horn, but even her most powerful blow barely leaves a mark. Meanwhile, Clevites remains lost in thought, baffled by the sheer foolishness of humans invading his domain after 1,000 years of peace. Still, if they insist on provoking him, he'll have to come up with a lasting way to keep them away. But first, he needs to handle Alicia. With a swift motion, he cuts her leg and sends her plummeting to her death. Not long after, Clevites shows up at the human kingdom. Burning with vengeance, he had no intention of interfering with the human world, as long as they stayed out of his, but they couldn't resist trying to invade his territory based on what the heroes said before the battle. It was the king of Haydn who sent them. So now, Clevites intends to pay the king a visit and have a serious word with him about it. The kingdom's archers quickly respond to the threat and prepare to take down Clevites, but as expected, their arrows are completely useless against him. Still, despite the obvious gap in power, they keep firing as if it might somehow make a difference. Clevites originally planned to ignore the rest of the humans. He only came for the king, but now that they've chosen to attack him, he mercilessly cuts them down as he makes his way to the castle. The castle guards scramble to ready their defenses, turning their catapults toward Clevites. But just like the archers' attacks, their weapons are completely ineffective. Clevites tears through the castle walls like they're made of paper. Inside the castle, a guard rushes to warn the king about Clevites' assault, but the king has already heard the destruction unfolding outside and knows exactly what's happening. The heroes he sent clearly failed, and it's obvious now that the weapons of Haydn weren't ready to take down Clevites. He understands the Clevites is likely coming straight for him, and there's no point in trying to escape. Clevites would find him no matter where he went. Still, even if death is inevitable, the king is determined to seal off the forge and ensure the flames of Haydn never die out. Meanwhile, outside the castle, Clevites is confused by how weak these humans are compared to the heroes who confronted him earlier. At first, he assumed they might have undergone some kind of elite training, but after the castle's guards launch metal ballistas at him, he realizes that their strength came from their weapons. Reflecting on the battle, he remembers how Alicia's sword, despite doing minimal damage, managed to leave a mark on his horn, something that should have been impossible. Though humans are little more than insects to him, even an insect armed with such a weapon could pose a threat. Realizing this, Clevitus decides he must investigate the source of their power. Meanwhile, deep within the castle, the king makes his way to inspect the Forge of Haydn. But before he can do much, the walls around him start to tremble. Realizing that Clevitus is close, he quickly seals off the forge. Just moments later, Clevitus smashes through the castle roof with his tail, and the moment he lays eyes on the king, he calls him out directly. The king tries to maintain his composure, insisting that Clevitus has no right to address him so disrespectfully. But Clevitus quickly shuts him down, warning him to mind his tone, because if he truly wanted to, he could erase all of humanity in a heartbeat, and not just the people of Haydn, but those in the surrounding kingdoms too. He points out that he spared the king so far, but even killing him wouldn't solve the problem. Eventually, another ruler would rise and once again threaten Clevitus's domain. So, Clevitus gives the king of Haydn a single chance to explain himself. He demands to know why the heroes were sent to attack him, but instead of offering a real answer, the king arrogantly says a beast like Clevitus could never comprehend anything. That's all Clevitus needs to hear. Without another word, he decapitates the king and begins plotting to erase humanity from existence. As he leaves the ruined city, Clevitus stumbles upon a crying baby whose mother has been trapped beneath collapsed rubble. Clevitus feels no pity for the child. He chooses to ignore it and keep walking. But then the dying mother calls out to him, begging Clevitus to save her baby. Clevitus is taken aback by the mother's request. He reminds her that he was the one who destroyed the kingdom and has already resolved to exterminate all humans. Then, why would he ever spare a human child? The mother acknowledges his reasoning, yet she argues that even if the adults brought his wrath upon themselves, her child is innocent and doesn't deserve to die. Clevitus mentions that to him all humans are equally worthless, so her argument pointless. Still, he asks if she can prove that the child has any value. The mother realizes she has no way of convincing Clevitus, especially with her death fast approaching. Still, she vows that if he spares the baby, he'll one day see its true value for himself. Shortly after, she passes away, and Clevitus leaves without a hint of emotion. Yet, he eventually returns for the child, suggesting that her final words did leave an impression on him. He's still uncertain whether taking the baby is a wise decision, but given how brief a human life is compared to his own, he figures it won't make much of a difference. Driven by curiosity, he decides to take care of the child for now. In the land of Edthia, 5 humanoid races coexist. The first are the Duns, a kingdom renowned for their architectural prowess and tactics. Next are the Orgites, a people known for their expertise in hunting and medicine. The Sladens are aquatic beings, adept at swimming and fishing. Then there are the Benti, a barbaric race inhabiting the wastelands. They are powerful individuals, but hopeless at cooperation, even in dire circumstances. And lastly, there is the kingdom of Haydnians, the most ancient of the humanoid races, masters of weapon forging, creators of the legendary blades of Haydn. While Edthia is vast, the world beyond its borders is shrouded in endless darkness, home to the dark beasts and their 4 lords, including the fearsome Clevitus. Because of this, no human has ever ventured beyond Edthia's edges. Back in his cave, Clevitus brings the baby along with him. After frightening off all the beasts to ensure the child doesn't get eaten, he lies down beside him to rest. However, he's unsure what to do next. He could share some of his energy to keep the baby healthy and avoid the risk of him dying anytime soon. But at the moment, the baby is covered in poop. Clevitus didn't plan on dealing with something like this, so without hesitation, he picks up the baby and drops him into a pit full of insects. The baby bursts into tears instantly, but Clevitus calmly tells him there's no danger. The insects only feed on poop. He put the baby in there to get him cleaned up. Still, that doesn't make the experience less terrifying. Even after pulling the baby out, the crying doesn't stop, and Clevitus is quickly growing tired of the non-stop noise. Still, as a dark beast lord, he can't just abandon the choice he's made. But if the child is going to survive, he'll need a human caretaker. So, Clevitus heads over to the corpses of the heroes he defeated, hoping one of them might still be of some use. A short while later, Alicia regains consciousness and finds herself gazing up at the sky. die, confused because she distinctly remembers dying. She starts to question whether she's in the afterlife, but when she notices Clevitus nearby, she realizes she's still inside his cave. Out of reflex, she reaches for her sword, only for Clevitus to inform her that he already tossed all the weapons and the bodies of her comrades into the depths of the crevasse. He explains that she seemed like she might be useful, so he chose to bring her back to life. At this point, Alicia is essentially a walking corpse, only able to move because of the dark energy Clevitus infused into her. He then orders her to be useful and produce some milk to feed the baby. It takes her a moment to fully grasp what he just demanded, but it's clear he's serious, and it's not a request. He genuinely needs the milk. Without waiting for her consent, he uses his powers to make her obey. But after several minutes of trying to feed the baby, Clevitus eventually comes to the conclusion that it's not working. Alicia points out the obvious: she's a virgin who's never had a child, so of course she can't produce milk. She also questions why someone like him would even bother trying to keep a baby alive in the first place. Clevitus has no interest in justifying himself to Alicia, but since she can't produce milk, he'll have to find another use for her. The baby won't die, not as long as he sustains it with his energy, but its hunger will never be satisfied. Frustrated, he demands to know if Alicia has any other way to obtain milk. Alicia can't go against Clevitus's order, so she informs him that the baby will need a wet nurse for feeding. However, that means traveling to a human town, something that would definitely spark fear given his current appearance. To avoid this, Clevitus chooses to take on a human form. He adopts the same appearance as the child's mother and decides to go by the name Clen, naming the baby Luna. Clen then asks Alicia to show him the way to the nearest village, but before they set off, they stop so Alicia can clean Luna's blanket. As Alicia washes the blanket, she notices that it bears the royal crest of Haydn. Meanwhile, in the ruins of what once was Haydn, word of the devastation has already spread. A scout is dispatched to check on the aftermath and is stunned by the destruction caused by just one dark beast. This only reinforces his belief that attacking one of the beast lords was a reckless decision from the start. The timing couldn't have been more unfortunate, as the attack happened on the very day the crown princess was meant to escape the kingdom with her son. Outside the kingdom, a group of soldiers from the kingdom of Duns waits, ready to take advantage of the situation. They decide to invade Haydn and take control of the forge before any other nation can claim it. Back at the river, Alicia questions Clen, demanding to know if he was aware that Luna belonged to the royal family when he took the child. Clen, however, is completely confused and says he has no idea what she's referring to. Alicia then explains that the blanket Luna was wrapped in bore the royal emblem, something only the royal family is permitted to use. Thinking back, Clen recalls that he found Luna beneath the castle debris, which does line up with her being royalty. Still, this revelation doesn't affect his plan going forward. Alicia questions what he means by the rubble of the castle. Clen casually replies that he was the one who destroyed Haydn and killed the king the last night. Alicia is in shock, struggling to believe that Haydn is truly gone, but Clen reminds her that they were the ones who ambushed him first. To him, it's no major concern, but Alicia insists it's a huge deal. If Clen really did wipe out Haydn, and Luna is the only surviving royal, then countless people will soon be coming after him. Clen doesn't understand why. Alicia goes on to explain that only members of the Haydn royal family possess the ability to use the unique forging techniques behind the creation of Haydn weapons. But as soon as the words leave her mouth, she realizes she's said too much. Up until now, Clen hadn't really considered what he planned to do with Luna. But if the child is truly that significant, then Clen figures he wouldn't mind turning him into the new king of the humans. That way, he could manipulate everything from the shadows, and if the humans ever crossed the line again, he'd have the perfect position to crush them completely. For now, they still need to find some milk for Luna, so Clen tells Alicia to hurry up. Alicia still doesn't understand why Clen is so fixated on the child, but one thing is clear: if anything were to happen to Luna, Clen would likely wipe out every human on the continent. With that in mind, Alicia knows she has to protect him no matter what. But just as Clen becomes distracted, a bandit sneaks up from behind, and before Clen can react, she's struck and knocked unconscious. Several hours later, Alicia regains regains consciousness and realizes she's shackled inside a moving carriage. Clem, relieved that she's awake, casually explains that they were captured earlier. However, he's not too concerned about it at the moment because Luna is currently asleep. Alicia, however, is deeply worried, mainly because she can't figure out how the bandits managed to overpower Clem so easily. She asks if he becomes as weak as an ordinary human in this form, but Clem explains that's not the case. He still possesses all his powers. It's just that this is his first time taking on a human form, and he hadn't realized how delicate the human skull actually is. Clem assures her that now that he understands his body's limitations, no one will catch him off guard again. Alicia is relieved, but if he's already regained his full strength, she wonders why he hasn't freed them yet. Clem explains that he's currently playing the role of an ordinary human. Until he successfully crowns Luna as king, he prefers to keep his true nature hidden. Moreover, one of his motivations for this entire ordeal is to study human behavior, and he's particularly curious to witness humanity's darker side firsthand. With that in mind, he's still confused about the situation, so he turns to Alicia for an explanation. Alicia explains to Clem that they were ambushed by bandits, the scum of society. Judging by the current circumstances, it seems the bandits plan to sell all the captives to a slave merchant. Clem wants to know how powerful these bandits actually are. Alicia replies that in terms of human strength, they're not particularly strong. However, they won't hesitate to use underhanded tactics, which makes them difficult to handle. She reassures Clem that most humans aren't as sinister as these bandits, so he shouldn't judge all of humanity based on their actions. After reaching the bandit camp, the prisoners are ordered out of the carriage. One man, unwilling to be sold into slavery, attempts an escape, but with his wrists bound and legs slowed by chains, he doesn't get far. The bandits catch sight of the man attempting to flee. One of them quickly pulls out a knife and hurls it into the man's back, killing him in the spot. The bold bandit then warns that anyone who dares to escape or defy them will suffer the same fate. Fear grips the rest of the slaves so tightly that none of them have the courage to resist. Clem is fascinated by the unfolding situation. Just as he and Alicia are about to move on, a bandit approaches and orders Alicia to go with him. Clem allows her to be taken, curious to see how events will unfold. Suddenly, a woman shouts at him for not working. Since Clem is now considered a slave, he decides to comply and walks over to her. However, the moment she notices he's carrying a baby, she begins calling for someone named Nell. Nell is the overworked and somewhat clumsy slave at the tavern, stuck doing all the toughest chores. When Carm shouts for her, she stumbles and falls. Carm scolds her for dropping the sheets everywhere, and Nell quickly apologizes. Despite the mishap, Carm orders Nell to take care of the baby. The moment Nell lays eyes on Luna, her face brightens. She absolutely adores babies. At the same time, Alicia is taken to the office of the bandits' leader, Vroko. However, Vroko immediately scolds his subordinates for not addressing him as boss, while the other bandits assume he's just messing around. Vroko insists he means it. If they won't recognize him as their leader, he'll have no choice but to unleash his pet, Betty. Alicia is stunned to learn that Vroko has gotten his hands on a troll, a fearsome dark beast from the west. What shocks her even more is that he's managed to tame it into a loyal companion. Just then, Vroko takes out the bag of crystals that Alicia had on her when she was captured. He points out that these crystals are only found in Luna Mountain, a region controlled by Clevites, one of the 4 lords of dark beasts. That means there's no way a regular person could have obtained them or even gotten anywhere near the place. He is aware that the kingdom of Haydn recently dispatched a team of heroes to fight Clevites, but according to reports, they were all defeated. Vroko also recalls that among them was a woman resembling Alicia. He notes how Clevites ravaged Haydn following the hero's failure, causing immense tragedy for its people. However, for the Ravens bandit group, this turn of events was the most favorable outcome they could have wished for. Vroko draws a red sword, leaving Alicia shocked. She can't believe someone like him wields a monohydrite sword. He brags about how these swords, forged from that rare metal, grant immense power to their users. However, he admits he's never experienced that surge of strength himself, because the one he holds is a fake. Only members of the royal family can craft true magic swords. Vroko explains to Alicia that their bandit group deals in two main trades, slaves and counterfeit magic swords, as most people can't distinguish the fakes from the real ones. He mentions the rumors claiming the entire royal family was wiped out by Clevites. If that's the case, he adds, the value of genuine magic swords will shoot up incredibly fast. He claimed that the 13 regalia, personally crafted by the king before his death, would be worth a fortune, although they were believed to have been lost during the battle with Clevites. Vroko is confident that, with Alicia now under his control, he can track them down and sell them for massive profit. He orders the two to make her guide them to the regalia in the morning after that. They can do whatever they please with her. While this is happening, Clem is working as a tavern servant. Nell is occupied with feeding Luna, so he's staying out of trouble, until a bandit storms over, shouting at Nell to fetch him more beer. She sets Luna down and obeys, but despite her compliance, the bandit still lashes out, kicking her in the back. Next, another bandit shouts at Clem to bring him some meat. Clem complies without hesitation, serving the meat without a word of protest. The bandits are taken aback by how obedient he is, convinced he'll make an excellent slave. However, Karm remains uneasy. There's something about him that feels off. The horn on his head led her to believe he might have Orgite blood, but his skin is far too pale for that, and his emotionless eyes don't match that of a normal boy. Meanwhile, Nell is quietly carrying the beer when one of the bandits deliberately trips her. She stumbles, splashing all the beer on the floor. The bandits immediately blame her, using it as an excuse to drag her outside for punishment. They take cruel pleasure in her suffering, and after mercilessly beating her, they simply walk away as if nothing happened, returning to their usual routine. Just then, Clem's shadows consume the bandits' bodies, leaving no trace behind. He then seeks out Nell and requests her help. Luna is hungry and needs milk. Confused, Nell agrees to feed the child. As Luna feeds, Clem takes the opportunity to question Nell. He wants to learn her identity and the reason she's allied with the bandits. Nell begins to share her story. She was born in a slave camp and never knew her father, but she remembers her mother vividly. Life was never easy for them, and from what Nell recalls, the bandits constantly abused her mother. Despite everything, her mother endured all the suffering just to protect Nell. But when Nell was around 12 years old, her mother suddenly vanished. Nell doesn't know if she died or somehow managed to escape. However, after her mother disappeared, the bandits shifted their cruelty toward Nell, tormenting her for amusement. Because of their abuse, she lost most of her teeth and can only hear from one ear. Her situation improved slightly when Karm took her under her protection. After that, the bandits no longer subjected her to their twisted games. Now, she even has a purpose, producing enough milk to feed starving infants. Clem finds Nell's story interesting, but based on what Alicia told him, a woman can only produce milk if she's had a child. So, he asks Nell where her baby is. Nell's face darkens as she quietly explains that she doesn't have one, her baby was stillborn. When Karm first told her the news, Nell sank into despair and, at the time, genuinely wished she would die. But the next morning, when she woke up, she found a random baby nursing from her. Realizing the child would starve without help, she let him drink as much as he needed. After that, more babies were brought to her to be fed, and that's how she ended up becoming the village wet nurse. So even though her life has been far from easy, she's determined to do her best to ensure the babies who depend on her milk are cared for and happy. Clem has heard all he needs, so he thanks Nell for sharing her story and invites her to join him. He wants her to be Luna's wet nurse. Even though he's usually wary of humans, he senses Nell's kindness and trusts her. Nell appreciates the offer and says it means a lot to her, but she doesn't believe Clem can actually leave this place after all. He's a slave just like she is, so she gently declines his offer. At the same time, some of the bandits are guiding Alicia across a bridge. When she notices they're taking her toward a flooded mine shaft, a sense of dread washes over her. Deep within the mine, she spots a man approaching the dock, holding a hook. The bandits burst into laughter, fully aware of what's coming next. Even though it's obvious a trap, the man decides to proceed anyway. The bandits swore they'd free him and his wife if he retrieves the treasure from the lake's depths. As he dives in and starts swimming downward, Alicia shouts at him to get out, warning him that the mine is said to be infested with monsters. Seconds later, the monsters leap out of the water with the man clutched in their jaws and tear him apart right in front of his wife. Alicia is horrified by the gruesome scene scene she's just seen, but the bandits are having fun, clearly entertained by the man's brutal death. These water-dwelling creatures are known as arvensis, and they first appeared during the Great Flood 300 years ago. Now, they're trapped within the flooded depths of these mines. Even Cordwar, the greatest hero of his era, couldn't stand a chance against them, and that was back when there was still firm ground to battle on. Now that the entire mine is submerged, defeating the arvensis is nearly impossible. The magical sword once wielded by the hero was known as Stream Splitter. Alicia figures that's the treasure the bandits ordered that man to go and fetch, but despite offering him freedom in return for risking his life, they never truly planned to let him live, even if he managed to return alive. She curses them as scums, but the bandits remind her that her wrists are tied, heavy steel weights on her legs, and stranded on a bridge high in the air. She's in no place to insult them. Worse yet, more bandits are eagerly waiting for their turn to torture her through the night, especially Fido, who is eager to hear her scream. Faced with limited options, Alicia had hoped to avoid using Clevetess's curse, but now she sees no alternative. Quickly, she dislocates her shoulder, twists her arms overhead, and slams Fido's head between the shackles, forcing him to cut the bridge's rope with his knife. The impact causes them both to fall into the mine floor below, and the moment they hit the ground, they both die. When the bandits see Alicia's corpse below, they begin to panic. They needed her alive to guide them to the 13 lost regalia. Meanwhile, deep in the cave, Alicia awakens, kept alive only by the immortality curse Clevetess placed upon her. Though the curse prevents her from dying, it doesn't heal her wounds. Now, broken and bleeding, she lies completely paralyzed, helpless. Every bone in her body is shattered, and with so much blood lost, escape is impossible on her own. Worse yet, if the bandits discover she's still alive, she'll be in even greater danger. She starts to struggle, trying to move, until the blood leaking from her body floats into the air, and suddenly, Clevetess materializes before her. Alicia is stunned to see him in such a small form, but he explains that it's because he's using the blood magic within her to manifest himself. That same magical blood is what's keeping her immortal body alive. If she loses all of it, she'll die for good. However, Clevetess assures her that as long as she remains valuable to him, he'll replenish all the blood in her body. Once that happens, she should eventually recover from her injuries. Alicia is relieved to hear that, but she quickly realizes that Clevetess still hasn't begun healing her. Curious, she asks what's holding him back. Clevetess replies that he will get to it, but first, he has something to ask her. He explains that he recently found someone ideal to serve as Luna's wet nurse. Despite being a demon, he could clearly see that Nell was being treated poorly here, so he gave her an opportunity to leave and start a better life caring for Luna. However, Nell outright refused. Clevetess asks Alicia if she has any clue why Nell would reject such a good offer. From Alicia's perspective, it's likely because Nell sees him as a slave who couldn't possibly keep his word. Groups like these bandits don't simply let people walk away, and those who do manage to flee usually end up being hunted down. Having grown up in this kind of environment, Nell probably believes that true freedom is completely out of reach for her. Clevetess asks if there's any way to fix the situation, and Alicia believes the simplest solution would be to eliminate all the bandits in the camp. If no one's left to chase after Nell, she'd be far more likely to accept Clevetess's offer. Alicia adds that, given how powerful he is, it should be no problem for him to wipe out the entire group on his own. But Clevetess refuses, saying he can't take that risk. If word got out that he left the mountain, others might see it as a chance to invade his territory while he's away. Instead, he wants Alicia to handle it, pointing out that it would be completely natural for a hero like her to wipe out a bandit group. Alicia starts to object, but Clevetess interrupts and tells her to just get it done, then immediately fills her with blood to heal her body. The bandits eventually descend to the mine's depths in search of Alicia's corpse. However, when they find her, they're terrified to see her body twisted in unnatural, grotesque ways. As every snapped bone realigns and her flesh knits itself back together, she's racked with unbearable pain. Yet, when the transformation is complete, she is fully healed. The bandits can't comprehend how she survived such a deadly fall, but their focus remains on forcing her to lead them to the 13 regalia. regalia. They know she's a hero, so they stay wary, yet they believe overwhelming her will be enough. But one impatient bandit rushes ahead, attacking Alicia with a stab to the shoulder. Alicia takes his arm, drives her fist into his face, then snatches his sword and eye patch. She hates being pushed into violence, but these bandits are beyond redemption, leaving her no choice but to end them. With Alicia handling the bandits, Clen's only task now is to find Nell and make her believe that escaping this place is actually possible. Meanwhile, Nell makes her way back to the tavern, where Carm has been anxiously waiting for her. She's been worried sick. She can't stand seeing Nell constantly mistreated and beaten, but when it comes to the bandits, there's nothing she can do to stop them. Nell is really grateful for Carm's kindness, but there's still plenty to do. Carm asks her to begin by cleaning up the dishes. She then observes that Nell seems unusually cheerful despite her injuries, so she asks if something happened. Nell hesitates to call it something good, but she confesses it did brighten her spirits. Nell questions Carm about the outside world, which surprises Carm since Nell has never shown curiosity like that before. Carm wonders why she's asking, so Nell clarifies that, unlike Carm, who was taken to the camp, she was born there and has never seen the outside. She assumes Carm must have some knowledge of it. Carm admits she's aware of the outside world, but she doesn't have many fond memories of it. Like most of the women brought here, she either lost her home or never had one, so it's not something they discuss much. She then asks Nell why she's suddenly so interested in the outside. Nell responds by saying that someone asked her if she wanted to leave. Carm slaps Nell hard for daring to say something like that, especially with bandits still all over the place. The bandits see them as nothing more than disposable slaves, only useful until they're not. That's why all the women have had to stick together and protect each other. If Nell wants to survive here, she can't go around saying things like that. Right then, Vroko walks in, having overheard everything. Carm gets really anxious, unsure of what he might do. She asks him why he's there, since he almost never visits the tavern, but Vroko simply says he heard about a baby and wanted to see for himself. Carm then turns to Nell and asks her to tell Vroko where the baby is. Nell says that the last time she saw Luna, she was in the stables. Vroko says he'll go check for himself, but before heading out, he tells Nell to come with him. The tone in his voice makes it instantly clear to Carm that this isn't a good sign. She tries to intervene, but she has no power in this place, so there's really nothing she can do. Meanwhile, Nell has no idea what's coming her way. After Vroko takes Nell away, Carm slams her hands on the table in frustration, furious because Nell was the only one around who could care for the babies, but Vroko clearly doesn't care about any of that. Carm tries to convince herself there was nothing she could have done, that Nell brought this on herself by mentioning leaving in front of Vroko, but deep down, she still feels awful about what's going to happen to her. Right then, Clen appears with Luna in his arms, catching Carm off guard since she hadn't heard him enter. She quickly assumes he's simply there to feed Luna. With a heavy heart, she informs him that Nell is gone and likely won't return. Carm isn't happy about it, but sadly, that's just how things work around here. Clen doesn't understand what Carm means by that, so he demands an explanation, and one look at Clen's eyes tells Carm that he's very serious about making sure Nell is alright. Meanwhile, Vroko leads Nell down an old stairwell, and Nell is amazed because even though she has lived her whole life in this camp, she has never seen this place before. Vroko explains that this area was once part of a massive magic ore mine, and that magic ores have countless uses. For instance, the lamp he's holding works by combining crushed magic ores with insect oil to create a flame. He goes on to say that before turning to a bandit, he spent a lot of time studying how magic ores could be used, especially how they react when mixed with different liquids to produce unique effects. Just then, Nell stumbled upon a skull on the floor, and she thinks this might not be good. Vroko turns out the lights and Nell begins to panic because this place is pitch black, so she can't see anything in here. She pleads with Vroko to turn the lights back on and Vroko obliges. But once Nell can see again, she's horrified to find Vroko's pet monster standing behind her. A key part of Vroko's research involved creating special mixtures to control demons like his pet Betty. This ability is what helped him take over as the bandit camp's leader. But as the leader, he can't afford to show mercy to someone like Nell after she openly talked about escaping. That's why he's decided to have Betty execute her. Once Nell fully grasps what's happening, she starts to panic. In a desperate attempt to flee, she takes off running, but Vroko quickly commands Betty to eat her. Betty immediately chases her. As Nell stumbles forward, struggling to get away, her mind flashes back to Clen's offer, and she deeply regrets not accepting it, wondering if things could have been different. Just then, she spots Clen holding Luna at the other end of the tunnel, and the last thought that goes through her mind is how sorry she feels for not being able to take care of Luna anymore. In that instant, Clen gets eaten by Betty and is swallowed whole, so she's gone. Luna bursts into tears at the horrifying scene, but Clen calmly tells her that this is simply how the world works. Monsters need to eat, and he can't fault it for following its nature. If anyone is to blame, it's him, for not getting there in time to save Nell. He's frustrated over losing someone as valuable as her, but at this point, there's nothing he can do. Clen then shifts his focus to Vroko, puzzled by the fact that a proud troll from the Western Forest would ever bow to someone like him. Vroko, on the other hand, thinks Clen must be out of his mind to be throwing insults at a time like this. He has no clue how Clen even managed to show up, but in the end, he figures it doesn't really matter. He orders Betty to eat Clen too, but to his surprise, she doesn't budge. Confused, he glances up at her to figure out why, and is stunned to see that Betty looks completely terrified. He's never seen her this scared before, and strangely enough, she won't even get close to Clen. She was utterly terrified, so much so that she reflexively vomits Nell up. However, Nell is drenched in stomach acid and has lost an arm and a leg, leaving her in terrible shape. Though she's badly mutilated, she's still alive, so Clen uses his abilities to counteract the acid. Then, he gently places Luna beside Nell so she can offer comfort in Nell's last moments. Clen then uses one of his shadows to carry Luna and Nell away while Vroko isn't looking, and by the time he turns back to face Clen, Vroko is shocked to see that the other two are gone. He thinks Clen must have done it by using some sort of magic, but Clen has no idea what magic even is. Vroko believes Clen is only pretending not to understand, since magic is the only possible explanation for everything he's done. In simple terms, magic involves using magic stones and certain ingredients to produce supernatural effects. For instance, the drug hidden in Vroko's coat was crafted from arcanasite, certain herbs, and the larvae of a parasitic fly. In short, it reduces anyone but him to complete idiocy. After using the substance on Betty, she became totally obedient to him. Vroko pours the drug into his fire, releasing a cloud of steam the moment Betty inhales it. She snaps, losing all sense of control and charging at Clen in a furious frenzy. Clen's body is tossed around like nothing, unable to fight back properly since he can't access much of his power in human form. As Clen is sent flying through the air, all he can think about is how furious he is that Alicia never said a word to him about magic. Meanwhile, Alicia is still in the middle of battling the bandits, having already taken down a dozen of them, but there are still plenty left, and the sword she snatched from one of the bandits has already snapped. If she plans to slaughter every last one of them, she'll need a stronger weapon. With that in mind, she bolts straight out of the cave. There are still about 50 bandits remaining, and even with her immortal body, exhaustion is still a threat. If she burns out before finishing them off, she's done for. Alicia finally reaches the water, only to find the monsters lurking at the surface, ready to devour her if she dives in. So instead, she climbs to the top of the scaffold, planning to lure the bandits after her. Once enough of them have followed her up, she cuts the support ropes, sending most of them crashing down into the water below. With so many bodies in the water, the monsters go wild, tearing through the bandits one by one in a bloody feast. Meanwhile, Alicia manages to slip past unnoticed by hiding inside a barrel. Since she doesn't have to worry about drowning, she just lets herself sink to the lake's depths, right where the legendary sword awaits. That was episode 3. Subscribe to not miss the next part and watch the next video on screen.